All right, let's get right into this week's threat intelligence briefing. We're tracking a really significant shift in the landscape. We're moving past looking at just isolated incidents, and instead, we're seeing a strategic convergence of high leverage attacks that, frankly, demand our immediate attention. So let's dive in. This quote from this week's Intel summary, it just nails it. We are seeing threat actors combine the incredibly fast exploitation of our network edge with AI-powered tools. And what that does is it just shrinks the time between them finding a vulnerability and them actually compromising a network. It's this pattern of acceleration and strategic targeting that is really defining the entire threat environment right now. So here's how we're going to break this down. We'll start high level looking at this threat convergence. Then we're going to zoom way in on two critical areas, these attacks on the network control plane and the very real weaponization of AI. And then finally, we'll zoom back out to talk about the strategic shift this all requires. And most importantly, leave you with some concrete operational takeaways. Okay, let's set the scene. We're basically seeing three major themes all converge at once. You've got the active exploitation of edge infrastructure. You have AI moving from this hypothetical threat into a real operational tool. And most critically, a deliberate focus on compromising control plane technologies, the actual systems that manage the network itself. And this is the point that you really need to get. This isn't just about stealing data from a server anymore. Adversaries are targeting the very fabric of our networks. They're going after the systems that manage trust, routing, and security policy. Why? Because if you compromise the control plane, you functionally own the entire environment. You hold the keys to the kingdom. So let's get into our first deep dive and see how this actually plays out. We're going to look at two case studies this week, a critical zero-day in Cisco's SD-WAN platform, and then a whole series of vulnerabilities in SolarWinds managed file transfer. Both of these really highlight this new focus on compromising the core systems that manage our networks and our data flows. Now, what's really important here is the number itself, 10.0. For those of you in the trenches, you know this is as bad as it gets. It is the maximum possible severity score. A CVSS score of 10 means a vulnerability is trivial to exploit remotely, it needs zero user interaction, and its impact on confidentiality, integrity, and availability is catastrophic. It is literally the definition of a worst-case scenario. So what is this thing? Well, CV 2026-2021-27 is a major flaw in the authentication mechanism of Cisco's SD-WAN controllers. These are the systems that orchestrate your entire wide area network. So to put it simply, it allows an attacker to send a specially crafted request to a device and just log in. That's it. No password, no MFA. They can just waltz right through the front door and get full administrative access to the network's command center. And if you look at this attack chain used by a group we're tracking as UAT8616, you can see just how methodical these breaches are. This isn't a simple smash and grab. They use that initial bypass to sneak a rogue device into the network. Then they downgrade the firmware to exploit an older bug to get root access, and then they wipe all the logs. This is a patient, sophisticated campaign that's built for long-term hidden persistence. And this all creates a perfect storm of risk, especially for small and mid-sized businesses. Why? Well, for convenience, their management interfaces are often just exposed directly to the internet. These devices also frequently have pretty weak logging compared to endpoints. And crucially, once an attacker is inside that SD-WAN control plane, they can start manipulating network segmentation and just collapse the very trust models that all of your firewalls and defenses rely on. So to round this out, let's just contrast the two major targets this week. With the Cisco SD-WAN, the goal is total network control. It's about owning the brain. Now, with the critical flaws in SolarWinds Surview, the goal is different, but it's just as damaging: mass data exfiltration. Managed file transfer systems are absolute gold mines of sensitive data, which makes them prime targets for extortion and ransomware. Okay, let's pivot now to our second major theme. For a long time, the misuse of AI in cyber attacks has been this kind of hypothetical, future threat. Well, that's not the case anymore. We are now seeing real-world examples of AI being used as an operational force multiplier, and it's collapsing the time and skill needed to pull off really complex attacks. I mean, check this out. In a campaign against multiple Mexican government agencies, attackers sent over 1,000 prompts to an AI assistant. And according to Gambit Security, the AI wasn't just helping, it basically acted as their operational team. It drafted exploits, it built custom tools, and it automated the theft of over 150 gigabytes of data. For the attackers, the cost and the time to iterate on their attack it completely collapsed. Now, let's talk about the tools that we use. There's this self-hosted AI agent called OpenClaw. It runs on your local machine. It saw one of the fastest growth rates in GitHub history. We're talking 100,000 stars in just 5 days. Developers were just incredibly excited about its promise. An autonomous agent that could write code, manage your calendar, run shell commands, all on your behalf. And right here, this is where the story takes a very dark turn. While the entire community was celebrating this amazing tool, researchers at Oasis Security asked a very simple but terrifying question. What happens when this super powerful AI agent, running with all of your permissions on your own machine, can be controlled by any random website you happen to visit? The attack path was devastatingly simple. You visit a malicious site. In the background, some code on that site opens a connection to the OpenClaw agent running on your machine. Now, the agent's password protection had one tiny exception. It didn't rate limit any connections coming from localhost. So, because the website's request technically comes from your machine, it could brute force the password in seconds and take full control. It could do anything your agent could do, and you would never see a thing. And this all highlights a really critical lesson about using AI in our defenses. It is not a silver bullet. AI does not replace good governance and basic security fundamentals. In fact, it introduces entirely new attack surfaces. And maybe most importantly, AI-driven detection is only as good as the data it's being fed. If an attacker can wipe the logs, like we saw in the Cisco attack, your fancy defensive AI has absolutely nothing to work with. Okay, so let's zoom back out. Given all these threats, how do we need to adapt? It really requires us to move beyond a simple perimeter defense and truly, finally embrace a zero-trust mindset, where trust is never, ever implicit. This quote gets right to the heart of it. When the very system that defines trust in your network is itself compromised, that trust becomes a weapon an attacker can use against you. An attacker sitting on your SD-WAN controller can just rewrite the rules of the network to make all of their malicious traffic look perfectly legitimate. And our whole definition of identity has to evolve. We're no longer just protecting user accounts with passwords. The most powerful actors on our networks now are not human. They're AI agents, service accounts, API keys, OAuth tokens. These non-human identities hold durable secrets and can execute actions with immense privilege, and they are quickly becoming a primary target. We're also seeing governance and regulation start to catch up. For instance, CISA is moving forward with its CIR-CIA rulemaking. That's going to mandate cyber incident reporting for critical infrastructure. Now, why this matters to everyone is that these requirements will cascade down through the entire supply chain. That means the pressure to have mature detection and response capabilities is about to seriously increase for everybody. So that brings us to the most important part of our briefing. What do you need to do right now? Let's walk through the prioritized actions you and your teams should be taking this quarter. First, patch your Cisco SD-WAN devices immediately. But don't stop there. You have to assume compromise and actively hunt for rogue peers and any signs of log tampering. Second, get your management interfaces off the public internet. Put them behind a VPN or a zero-trust solution. Third, upgrade SolarWinds ServeView. It's critical. Fourth, update your user training to include AI-powered voice phishing and deepfakes. It's happening. Fifth, treat self-hosted AI agents like any other privileged user and isolate them, because as we saw with OpenClaw, their power can be turned against you. And finally, harden your own security tools. Even things like Wireshark had security fixes this week, which just proves nothing is off limits. And I'll leave you with this final thought. Patching your perimeter is absolutely essential, but it is no longer sufficient. The attacks we're seeing today are designed to bypass the perimeter and weaponize trust itself. So the question you really need to be asking is not just, are we patched, but is our trust model resilient enough to withstand a compromise? Thanks for your time.